All right, let's dive right in. For this explainer, we're going to step directly into the boots of a 20-year-old mechanic from Bari, Italy. We're getting a ground-level, absolutely visceral look at the chaotic reality of World War II. Just imagine being a young guy who expected nothing more out of life than fixing fishing boat engines with his dad, marrying his childhood sweetheart Elena, and, complaining about the price of fuel. But, as we're going to see, history had a completely different plan.
So, we kick off our story on June 10, 1940. Benito Mussolini has just announced that Italy is entering the war against Britain and France. There are massive crowds gathering, flags are flying everywhere, people are literally cheering in the streets. But our protagonist's father? He's a World War I veteran. He still carries a piece of shrapnel in his shoulder. He watches these cheering crowds and delivers this incredibly foreboding warning. Quick wars are usually longest in the memory.
Chapter 1. From Bari to the Mountains.
Right before he leaves the harbor in his family's mechanic shop, his 14-year-old sister Lucia gives him this badly tied red thread bracelet for luck. He kind of jokes about it, complaining that it's way too tight and that luck should, at the very least, know how to tie a proper knot. But he wears it anyway. And that tiny red thread really becomes his anchor because things escalate incredibly fast. In just a matter of months, this totally ordinary young man is ripped from his everyday life, pushed through this grueling summer training, and then suddenly plunged into the freezing, unforgiving mountains of Albania as Italy invades Greece. Now, the Italian public back home, they were sold this grand illusion of glorious marching columns and super-quick victories. But the reality on the ground was brutally different. We're talking freezing mud, dead mules, and guys losing fingers to frostbite before they even laid eyes on the enemy. It's in this absolute misery that our guy meets Sergeant Carlo Bianchi. Bianchi is a cynical, 37-year-old veteran, and he teaches the kid the actual rules of survival. Rule 1, keep your socks dry. Rule 2, never ever assume headquarters actually knows where you are.
Chapter 2. The North African Desert. Fast forward a bit to 1942. Our protagonist gets reorganized and is sent across the Mediterranean. This was a completely terrifying crossing through waters literally swarming with British submarines and aircraft. And if you managed to survive that, you were thrust into a totally different kind of nightmare, the staggering waterless expanse of the Libyan and Egyptian desert. I mean, think about how annoying a delayed package is today. Now imagine trying to coordinate a delivery when every single liter of fuel, every bullet, and every single ration has to cross a hostile sea, survive port bombings, and then travel hundreds of kilometers across a barren desert just to reach the front lines. The logistics were just mind-boggling.
Out in the desert, he really returns to his mechanic roots, and he realizes a very hard truth. Courage means absolutely nothing if you don't have supplies. Determination cannot manufacture fuel. The Axis supply system was stretched to its absolute breaking point. And during the brutal artillery barrages of El Alamein, this reality is driven home by pure tragedy. His best friend, Paulo, is permanently crippled when their supply truck is attacked from the air. It overturns, it catches fire, and our mechanic literally has to drag his screaming friend out of the burning metal.
Chapter 3. The Armistice of 1943. Okay, let's jump ahead to September 1943. It is a complete mess. The Axis forces have been totally crushed in North Africa, the Allies have invaded Sicily, and Mussolini has fallen from power. And then, a secret armistice basically shatters the entire country overnight. Just try to imagine the sheer panic of this moment on September 8th. The armistice is announced, and the soldiers actually cheer for a second, thinking, hey, peace has arrived. But almost instantly, that relief turns into a singular, terrifying question. What are our orders? Because nobody knows. The king and the government flee, and within hours, the German forces who were just their allies instantly become their armed captors.
The state just fractures. Think about the impossible, life-altering choices these ordinary soldiers had to make literally before breakfast. Do you side with the newly rescued Mussolini? Do you try to join up with forces loyal to the king? Do you run and fight with the resistance? Do you just try to hide? Or do you end up in a German labor camp? German vehicles are rolling up to their positions, demanding weapons. The road just explodes into total confusion. And in the chaos, our protagonist, along with Sergeant Bianchi, makes a choice. They run.
Chapter 4. Fugitives and the Resistance. Choosing to flee, our protagonist and Sergeant Bianchi essentially become fugitives in their own country. They're hiding out in barns, sleeping in orchards, completely relying on the bravery of everyday civilians. This is where they meet a young woman named Teresa. She rides around on this bicycle with bread in the basket, but underneath the bread, she is secretly smuggling ammunition to local fighters.
Now, it's really important to understand that the Italian resistance was not some perfectly united monolith. It was a very fragile, incredibly messy alliance of convenience. You had communists, Catholics, socialists, monarchists, liberals, and former soldiers all thrown together. They argued constantly. The only thing keeping them united was their shared opposition to the German occupation and the fascist forces. They literally needed each other just to survive.
This is where we see a fascinating shift. Instead of using his deep knowledge of engines to fix trucks, our mechanic uses it for quiet sabotage against the occupying forces. He figures out exactly which tiny, seemingly insignificant component to pull from a German vehicle to completely disable it without leaving any obvious signs of tampering. As the saying goes, a good mechanic stops a vehicle for 6 hours, a bad one, 2 days.
But this incredibly tense chapter ends in profound tragedy. While they're hiding from a German patrol, our guy, Teresa and Binky, are on the verge of being discovered. And Sergeant Binky steps out into the open, completely alone. He sacrifices himself with a single lie, telling the patrol, "I am a lost Italian veteran trying to reach my family." He deliberately gets arrested just so the others have a chance to escape. The protagonist never sees Binky again. He leaves behind nothing but a question mark scribbled next to his name in an old military paybook.
Chapter 5. A change of uniforms. Moving forward to June 1944, Rome is finally liberated. Crowds are cheering, church bells are ringing all over the city. But up in the north, the war is far from over. Our protagonist, who is amazingly still wearing that frayed, badly tied red thread bracelet, decides to join up with the newly reorganized Italian army. And almost overnight, his whole world turns upside down again. New uniforms, new officers, different rifles. Suddenly, they are fighting against their former allies, alongside their former enemies. It was this surreal, psychological whiplash. But here's the thing. While the uniforms changed, the traumatic memories carried by the soldiers didn't change one bit.
At one point, a young, unblooded recruit looks at our veteran protagonist and asks this deeply profound question. Are they different now that they are the enemy? It just perfectly captures the complete moral absurdity and the wildly shifting alliances that really defined the Italian experience of this war. Our protagonist just looks down at his own uniform, thinks about all the different sides he's technically been on, and realizes there just isn't a simple answer to that.
Chapter 6. Rebuilding a Broken Machine.
By May 1945, the war in Europe finally comes to an end. Our protagonist, now 25 years old, returns to the train station in Bari. He finds his sister Lucia all grown up, his parents have visibly aged, and his old friend Paolo is walking with a severe limp from that horrific attack in the desert. The war is done, but the country is just deeply, deeply scarred. Post-war Italy was fiercely divided. Everyone wanted to process this massive trauma in different ways. Some people demanded trials, some wanted straight-up revenge, while others just wanted total silence, conveniently claiming they were completely against the war from the very start. But our protagonist? He completely resists the urge to erase his complex, highly contradictory truth. He chooses to tell his children everything, the good, the bad, and the absolutely terrifying.
If we tie it all back to that engine motif, there's a really universal truth here. Countries break down through thousands of tiny individual decisions: ambition, fear, blind obedience, and silence. And they can really only be repaired the exact same way you'd repair a shattered engine. Not by pretending nothing happened, but by facing it honestly and remembering exactly what did happen.
Decades later, he's holding a brand new red thread bracelet, a gift from his late sister's daughter. And he takes his father's old mechanic wisdom and applies it to the massive trauma of a fractured nation. You don't just start guessing what's wrong. You listen first. The machine will tell you where it broke.
So we're going to leave you with this haunting final thought to ponder. Where did the country break? Was it broken when the war started, when the armistice was signed, during the Civil War? The truth is, there was never just one sound of breaking. It's a powerful reflection on the sheer fragility of nations, the devastating weight of our individual choices, and the long, deliberate, honest act of healing. What parts of our own histories are we failing to listen to?